Hello and welcome to Talking Points. I'm Dave Kelly, Director of Advanced Media Production at Cal State Long Beach. Today we'll be talking about the wonders of the human voice and why that voice is such a powerful tool for communication. My guest today is Andrea Caban. She is an assistant professor of theater arts and she is also a voice coach and a professional actor. Welcome, Andrea, and thank you for joining us on Talking Points.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
You know, the show is called Talking Points, so it goes without saying we do a lot of talking here, and that wouldn't be possible without the human voice. We should also acknowledge at the outset that there's a very popular television program on the airwaves called The Voice, which of course refers to the singing voice. But for purposes of our conversation, we want to talk about the human voice as the basis of human communication and the range of things that we do with the voice. In your experiences as a voice coach, as an actress, as an assistant professor in theater arts, what impresses you most about the human voice and its capacity?
Well, the ability for the voice to convey so many different things about our human experience. You know, we use pitch and volume and rhythm and duration to express ourselves, and we make those decisions on a moment-to-moment basis all the time, and all of that conveys our human experience. I think it's beautiful.
Well, we should probably talk about the physiology and the anatomy of the human voice for just a moment. We won't get too technical here, but just to lay some foundation for the rest of the conversation about the mechanics of the voice and how to alter it and so on. But basically, we've got three components to generating the human voice. We have the wind, the pressure from the lungs coming up. You need that air pressure. Then it goes into the second component, which is the vocal folds, which used to be known as the vocal cords and still are, but it's more appropriately called the folds. Those are that regulates the air coming up. It's a valve, and it vibrates, creating sound waves. And then from there, that sound wave goes into the articulators, which basically is the oral cavity with the tongue, with the lips, the palate, and so forth. So how do those things all come together to magically form what we know as the human voice?
Well, without breath, your vocal folds would be like the sound of a butterfly's wings. They would be nothing. So breath is really the foundation of all voice. It's the power center of voice. And the vocal folds, which are housed in the larynx, and you can see that on a man's anatomy, his Adam's apple sticks out a little bit. That's the thyroid cartilage of the...
Thyroid notch, I believe.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thyroid cartilage of the larynx. The vocal folds will approximate. They'll come together and they'll chop up that air. And what our articulators do is we shape the sound. We shape the sound from the glottis, from the vocal folds, all the way to the lips. And so you actually have articulators all the way through this area here. And they shape the sound or obstruct the sound. So as in vowels, vowel sounds are just shaped, right? And consonant sounds are obstructed in some way. And that's it, really. And then it goes out into sound waves and hits eardrums.
Right. And as far as the muscles are concerned in the larynx and in the throat, those muscles are very important. In fact, they're some of the fastest muscles in the human body, and they need to be so. And why is that the case?
Well, the larynx is both a voluntary set of muscles and involuntary. Voluntary in that when you choose to speak, your larynx is there for you. Your vocal folds approximate and the process that I just described happens. Involuntary in that when you eat or drink something, so as not to inhale your food or drink into your lungs, your vocal folds close. So the glottis, the space in between the vocal folds, closes. The false vocal folds, or the ariepiglottic folds, they close, and then your epiglottis closes on top of the larynx. So your larynx gets protected from all of the awesome things that you're going to be eating and drinking and going into your digestive system and not into your lungs.
So it's a very good thing we have the fast twitch muscles where we need them right there.
Yeah.
Okay, that brings up another point. Now that we understand the physiology of the throat, what happens when the average person says, I hate public speaking because when I get up in front of a crowd, my throat tightens up, and then I feel like I can't breathe, I can't get any air into my throat, and then my mind goes blank and I just freeze. What's happening when those things occur, and how can someone learn to overcome that?
Well, in moments of stress, We, as also in the animal kingdom, will choose either a fight, flight, or freeze response. And mostly what you were describing would be what I would call a freeze response. And that's really indicative of all the physical tension that you were describing. My throat closes, I can't breathe, so perhaps the intercostal muscles in between the ribs, they close down, and the thoracic cavity closes down, and really, you get smaller. When you're tense, you get smaller, you breathe more shallowly, and I'll tell you that the word for inhalation, another word for inhalation is inspiration. It's also the word that we use to describe an amazing idea. And inspiration, air coming in, and thought both happen with breath. So if you're not breathing, then your mind goes blank. You've never come up with an awesome idea holding your breath. Oh my God, I have a great idea. It's always, I have a great idea. So that's what happens to the body. And in those moments of stress, the way to combat that is to become aware. Awareness in and of itself is alchemical. So if you are noticing those bits and pieces of you that start to shut down in moments of perceived stress, like if you have to get up in front of a group of people to talk, just becoming more aware of those moments and calming yourself down, allowing your body to relax, then your mind will stay more active.
It's interesting, the way you've described that is sort of like constricting your breath is actually constricting your thoughts as well.
Well, sure, because if you're constricting your breath, you're constricting blood flow, and blood flow to the brain is really important for complex thought or even simple thought, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I know that there's a technique that you use when teaching students in theater arts on how to relax when they breathe and how to speak with a voice that has air behind it in the appropriate fashion, and that's called the Fitzmaurice voice work. What is Fitzmaurice voice work, and how does it connect breathing with the voice? And then there are some other components to that too in terms of mental focus and clarity and imagination and so on. But it starts with something that's referred to as destructuring.
Right.
What is destructuring?
Well, destructuring is necessary because in everyday life, we walk around with a lot of habitual tension, which inhibits the voice, as we were just talking about. I lived 13 years in New York City, and my habitual tension always ends up being my left shoulder because of clutching my bag as I walked onto the subway, right? And so I get small a little bit habitually, and so destructuring helps release habitual tension from the body. And we do that by putting the body into these modified yoga positions. So that it's not yoga, but it's some of the shapes of yoga. And we're actually inducing tremor in the body. So going back to that kind of fight, flight, or freeze image of an animal, I don't know if you have a dog, but if you do, you do have a dog.
I have had a dog.
Oh, yeah, right. So, and I have a dog, and when she gets up from her nap, she kind of shakes off the slumber, right? And that's a shake or a type of tremor. Or when you're really cold, sometimes your body will tremor as to warm yourself up. Or if you're at the gym and you're picking up something heavy, sometimes your body will tremor. And it's a stress response that the body has. And it actually is quite healthy. And in cases of like if you're freezing cold, it really does warm the body up to tremor. Well, destructuring is inducing tremors in the extremities, so either the legs or the arms, but at the same time letting the torso be free and letting the breath be chaotic and move with the tremor, so that you're not with your habitual breath that you use every day. In fact, you're in this sort of wild, chaotic freedom breath. And it breaks up the habitual patterns of the breathing mechanism. So that's destructuring.
And then there's the process of restructuring, which is putting it all back together again, so that we can now breathe and speak and think as one entity, as opposed to all of these various tensors or tense activities going on at the same time.
Right. So if I left my student actors on the floor destructured, having no connection to text, then they would be pretty upset with me. So we have to teach them how to restructure or to structure. And restructuring is what the body wants to do naturally in the absence of habitual tension. So before we had habitual tension, when we were infants, our ribs swung open, our transverse abdominis, or the lowest belly muscle, engaged, and we could cry all day long and we would never lose our voice.
And you can mimic that here.
Oh, sure. And I could do that all day long without losing my voice if I'm structuring properly. And what that baby did also, not just open channel of sound and putting open voice out into the world, but there was a one-to-one correspondence between the baby's experience and the baby's expression of that experience. So you could tell exactly what the baby is feeling by listening to the cry. And so that's the goal, but with complex texts for the actor, right? Can there be a one-to-one correspondence between the actor's thought or their inspiration and the inspiration of breath and the supported open channel of sound of that thought? So that's what restructuring is. And we work on it because we would do it naturally if we had something very important to express. So if you're trying to stop someone from crossing the street because they might be in danger, you will probably structure naturally. Your ribs will swing open, your lower belly will engage, and your voice will be heard effortlessly. But when it comes to memorized text, weird things start to happen. And so we work a lot in restructuring with bringing the images of a text into the body so that the body can have a somatic connection to text, and so that the actor's thoughts can get lined up with the character's thoughts.
And you can bring about that emotional response on cue.
Exactly. And so what destructuring, which is freedom, and restructuring, which is focusing that freedom, does is it sensitizes the body to emotion, so that the body doesn't have to lock up when big emotion starts. Have you ever heard someone stopping a cry and feeling like their throat was tight? That's holding down emotion, but and restructuring allows it to flow. And then you can just respond naturally and emotionally to text or to another person.
We just have about 30 seconds left before we go to the break, but when we talk about body language, experts tell us that body language is about 80% of communication when people are face-to-face. If that's the case, why speak?
Well, it's sort of hand in hand, right? You know, if the body is tense, then you definitely hear it in the voice. But yeah, the body does communicate a lot. And the shape the body takes communicates a lot. So why speak? Well, because we can.
Because that's the only way we can get actual words and data to the folks that need to hear it.
Yeah, we've got some complex ideas, we humans, that we need to express. And so the voice kind of picks up where the body leaves off.
So it's very important. We're going to take a break now. Stay with us. When we come back, we're going to take a little tour around Europe, and we'll have a chance to see Andrea's range of accents. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Jane Close Connolly, President of Long Beach State. Thanks for watching Beach TV.
Ever thought about studying the psychological ecology of sharks using robots? Or maybe spending the day not in a classroom, but aboard a large vessel, studying marine life in the ocean, firsthand. The opportunities are endless with a degree from Cal State Long Beach.
Welcome back to Talking Points. I'm Dave Kelly. My guest today is Andrea Caban, and we're talking about the wonders of the human voice. Andrea, before we went to the break, we were talking about body language being about 80% of perceived communication, or at least that's what stays with us, is a notion of attitude, tone, and presentation when we speak with someone in person. But you know, when we're on the telephone, there is no visual. We don't see who we're talking to, so we only have the voice to go by. We develop an image of that person who's on the other side of the phone. For me, as the speaker on the telephone, if I'm doing the speaking and I want to generate or create a certain image for the other person, how do I do that? How do I control the kind of image that I'm going to generate for the person receiving my voice on the other end?
Well, think about that person that you're speaking to as if they're right in front of you. So same rules apply to opening up the body, good alignment, so that you can support the sound from lower in the body. But typically when we're talking on the phone, it's either holding the phone like this, or if we're driving, it's up like this, which tenses the vocal folds, right? And so phone and proper alignment don't typically go together. But if you practice talking on the phone, sitting up straight, and allowing breath to drop in and out of the body freely, then you'll convey a warmer, more confident tone on the phone.
I've also noticed that at times when I'm on the phone, and if I'm really emphatic about something that I'm trying to communicate, I will start gesturing with the other hand.
Sure.
This hand is on the, the phone on the receiver, and this, the hand is going, like, okay.
Yeah, sure, because there's something about this that helps you get your thought out. But I think some of this gets transcribed onto the voice as well, because there's something about using the arm to emphatically make your point that ends up in the voice as well.
Right,
Yeah.
right. It's just reinforcement, I
Yeah,
guess. It's the
yeah.
physical reinforcement. They don't see, but maybe they hear it.
Right, but it helps you to be clearer about your thoughts, and so they do hear it or see it in their own way, right? It gets conveyed.
And while we're on the topic of mental imagery and the voice, radio programs and radio theater do a great job of entertaining people without any visuals. Why is that? How is it that the voice over the radio is such a powerful tool for creating visual imagery?
Well, imagery is so powerful, and it works on our bodies in a very personal way. So if we hear a voice and an image from that voice, then we get to attach our own imagination to it. The image is not supplied for us, and so we're a more active participant in the storytelling when we're just listening. And I think that makes for a pretty enjoyable experience that way, right?
Right, and they've described radio as theater of the mind.
Yeah.
And so I think it's totally appropriate.
Yeah.
Speaking of theater and acting and so on, I promised the viewers that we would take a trip around Europe and hear some of your wonderful accents.
Okay.
Let's play a little game here. Let's say we're at Downton Abbey and we're having dinner with the Earl of Grantham. And you're there and you're speaking with a duke or a duchess. How would you speak to someone at dinner?
Well, I would make sure that my jaw is quite high. So I think about accents in terms of the oral posture first, right? That's 85% of an accent. So my jaw is quite high when I'm speaking to Lord Grantham. And the tip of my tongue is quite active. And right behind the tip of my tongue, the blade of my tongue, has a bit of a cup in it, like for a bit of tea. So and my lip corners can move a bit if they need to, and this is sort of the oral posture that I would go for.
And if we go downstairs, because that's upstairs, downstairs, we go downstairs into the kitchen and we have some folks there that have a Cockney accent.
All right then, so my tongue is then quite flat, right? And I'm using a bit more volume to communicate, and my jaw's doing a lot of the work. And you also hear that a lot of the work, my glottis, right, that the space between my vocal folds is working quite a lot. So that's the difference there.
And occasionally they have a visitor from Ireland. And how would that person speak?
Right, well, as opposed to the Cockney accent, there really isn't a lot of glottal reinforcement at all in the Irish accent. What you'll see a little bit of is my jaw coming forward a little bit of jaw advancement, and the back of my tongue is sort of braced up against my teeth, so the tip of my tongue can be real flittery and light.
We're going to leave the British Isles and travel across the Channel, go into France, and you're now on the streets of Paris.
So immediately I would put my lip corners forward, and again the back of my tongue is quite high, so I can hit those French R sounds very easily, and so that is where we are in Paris.
And we'll take a trip down south across the Alps into Italy, and now we're in Italy.
All right, so if we are in Italy, then the tip of my tongue is quite flat and it advanced forward, so it is hitting the back of my teeth, and also I can tap my R sounds a bit like this.
And so we'll get on an airplane in Rome and we'll fly to New York. So now we've taken it across the pond, as they say, across the Atlantic to New York City. You're an East Coaster, I know, a native East Coaster. How would we greet you in New York?
Well, if we're in New York, then we say, hey, how you doing? Are you from Brooklyn? Right? And so the oral posture of a New York sound is very urban, and so the lip corners are forward, and it looks a lot similar to the Cockney accent, right? So another urban accent, right? And so you'll see similarities in oral posture between those two accents, yeah.
And I think you said that either your mother or grandmother is from Philadelphia. How do they talk in Philly?
Well, so I'll do a little bit of my Aunt Shirley, who is from one of my plays. I always felt a little angry for my parents not recognizing that I could have gone to college, you know, because a woman in her 60s wasn't encouraged to go to college. Yeah.
Okay. All right, we're going to go a little bit further north into Boston, and this is one I'm going to attempt. I'm not a practiced actor or anything like that, but I'll give it my best shot.
All right.
You go to Boston, and if I were me, speaking in my California accent, I would say, "Where did you park the car?" Okay, so the person standing next to me, a native Bostonian, would say, "Where did you park the car?"
Right.
There's no R.
Right. It's a non-rhotic accent. So that's one of the main clues into a Boston accent. It's non-rhotic, no R sounds. Stot. And also, I might say start, R, and a Bostonian might say stot. So it's a little bit more open, a little bit more forward. The tongue is a little bit more cupped. It's not a sound that we hear in many other American accents in that pure form. So it's pretty unique, that one.
Exactly. And I know that also there's another affectation of that accent that I've noticed is that when they say a word like Cuba, they can't pronounce that last Cuba. We say Cuba. It almost turns into an ER, Cuber. Cuber. Or if someone is playing an instrument, which I would refer to as a tuba, they would call it a tuber.
Right.
Why does that occur?
Well, words that end in a vowel in these non-rhotic accents, like Boston, or even in like RP, like even in Downton Abbey, there's this, well, we used to call it an intrusive R. I think there's a better word for it now phonetically, because intrusive sounds a little rude. But there's this intrusive R that comes in words that end in a vowel sound, as if it were being connected. So Cuber and I, my brother and I, right? Brother and I, instead of brother and I, becomes brother and I. So we connect it if a word ended in an R. If a word ends in a vowel sound, we also connect it. Sort of, the mind sort of inserts the R there.
And when we talk about accents, what really causes the accent, other than just growing up in an area, which obviously is how people develop it, but is it the placement of the tongue? You've kind of described that when you were going through the various accents, but is it the placement of the tongue primarily, or is it the cultural aspect of the ear hearing it, filtering it through the brain, and then trying to recreate it as best it can? Or is it a combination of all of those things?
I think it's definitely a combination of those things. I think that the oral posture is sort of a complex network of tension, and that pattern of tension is specific to any community. Now, of course, there are idiosyncrasies within any given speaker, but within any given community, there's some commonalities, right? And so that's oral posture, but that's also oral posture within the context of a group. And if your desire is to be understood and intelligible by your community, then you're going to take on those same attributes as your community.
Right, and I want to transition now into another area of where the human voice comes in very handy, and that is in the use for therapeutic reasons. And I know that you've had an experience working with a person who has ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. And what happens typically with that disease is that the muscular control in the throat starts to give way. But you've been able to overcome that and still maintain a voice with this person. Please explain that, if you would, for a moment.
Well, my client is experiencing weakening and atrophying in her larynx, but also in her soft palate or her velum, and in the root of her tongue. And so the way she spoke before these things started to happen to her doesn't work for her anymore. It feels like she's swallowing her tongue when she speaks in her voice one, is what we call it. So what I did was I looked at the muscles that she couldn't use anymore, and I started to build a fictitious accent based on the muscles that she could use. And so I built this oral posture around the muscles that she can use. And so instead of articulating NG words like singing and dancing in the back of the mouth where the velum is, the tongue to the soft palate, we're now at singing and dancing at the front of the mouth, almost like a California sound, right? And you'll notice that my sound, the tone of my voice is really bright and forward and kind of nasal. It's because her velum, her soft palate, is atrophying. And so necessarily her voice is going to be more nasal, but we're trying to put it into the mask area, like she's a former singer, so that she can be heard still. Also, when you pitch up like that, the larynx has to sit a little bit higher. The hyoid bone, or the bone right above the larynx, sits a little bit higher so that the tongue doesn't have to move so far. And because her tongue isn't as dexterous as it used to be, in this fake accent, her jaw is really high. And so we set her jaw really high, as opposed to like the way I talk, my jaw can move quite easily up and down. In her fictitious accent, we keep it high. We call it the I'm a human being accent, like B-E-A-N, because that reminds her to articulate the ends in the front of the mouth. And we're basically saying yes to any of the limitations of her physiology and trying to do workarounds.
We're down to about 30 seconds now on the show. It's really gone by fast. Yeah. What's in the future for you, Andrea?
Well, I am continuing my work with my ALS client and using transcripts of our sessions and turning them into a new solo play for myself. And so I'll be playing my client Terry and myself in the process of building this accent, and it's called The Voice Bank. So that's my big project right now.
That sounds like a tremendous project, and thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us for this edition of Talking Points. Join us again soon for another show. Until then, have a nice day. I'm Dave Kelly.